What's going on, guys? GloveSaveHockey here. In today's video, we're going to be going through the worst contract on every single NHL team. Beginning with the Anaheim Ducks, we're going to be talking about forward Alex Killorn, who's got 2 years left on his deal at $6.25 million. So far this season, he's only got 7 points in 22 games, 1 goal overall. It's usually a consistent 30 to 40 point score, with 64 being his career high with the Lightning a couple years ago. I just don't think this contract is worth it, even with the cap going up. He is still contributing pretty well defensively and on the penalty kill. I definitely think they could be allocating this money elsewhere. I don't think it's going to take too much into effect with this team, considering that they do have a lot of young guys right now, but I definitely say this is their worst contract. On now to the Boston Bruins, and we're going to be talking about centerman Elias Lindholm, who's got 6 years remaining on his contract at $7.75. He's set to become an unrestricted free agent at age 36 and is not the player that he was a couple of years ago with the Calgary Flames. He's got a no-move clause for the next 4 years of this contract and a modified no-trade clause. In the last couple of years, he's got 9 points in 14 games this year. He had 47 last year, but only 17 of those goals. His overall impact to the game is just completely going downhill, and I think Boston is regretting signing this contract. On now to the Buffalo Sabres, and we're going to be talking about their goalie, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who's got 4 years left on his contract at $4.75. He got this contract after having a really good second half to the season a couple of years ago. There is no trade protection on this contract until next year, when he is technically UFA eligible. This year, he's only played in 6 games. He has an .897 save percentage, .887 save percentage last year. That 9, 10, and 54 games is what got him this contract in the first place. But overall, despite a last good couple of games this year, he has not played too well this season and did not play well last year. I look at this contract as a negative asset right now. Not too sure how much interest there is around the league for Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. On now to the Carolina Hurricanes, and we're going to be talking about center Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who currently has 5 more years left on his deal at $4.82. Jesperi Kotkaniemi broke into the NHL at 18 years old. He's only 25 now. It feels like he's been in the league for so long. He will be a UFA at age 29 in 2030. This contract was not good the second it was signed. He obviously was brought over with the offer sheet, which was over $6 million. Then they extended him later that year to an 8-year contract. This year, he's just got 5 points in 15 games. His career high was a couple years ago with 43 and 82 games with Carolina, but he's just basically been a pretty consistent 20 to 30-ish point producer, making way too much money as a centerman. His overall impact has been okay this year. He's only being deployed in fourth-line minutes and has always been a pretty decent two-way forward for the most part, but he's never going to be worth this contract. On now to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and we're going to be talking about defenseman Ivan Provorov, who is in the first year of an 8-year contract, paying him $8.5 million. I didn't like the contract the second this was signed. I think it was the night before free agency last year. He is being deployed in a little bit more of a role this year where he's not doing too bad, but I just don't really see a situation where this does play out and it is a net positive contract, even with the cap going up. He's got under 10 points this year, and he's just not producing offensively like he used to, and I don't think he's going to get back to that point either. It's just not something that he has. I think he's just more of a shutdown, good skater, block shots type of defenseman who can put up 30 points. So not really a fan of this 8 times 8.5 for Provorov. On now to the Calgary Flames, and we're going to be talking about winger Jonathan Huberdeau, who currently has 6 more years left on his deal at $10.5 million. This contract was also really risky right when it was signed. He had obviously just arrived to Calgary from Florida. They just lost Matthew Tkachuk. They want to lock up a star winger. He will be 38 years old at the expiration of this contract, and he's just not the same player he used to be. He did have 62 points last year. He's got 12 in 19 games so far this year with 4 goals and 8 assists, but he's just not impacting the ice the way he used to. This season is definitely better, but as you can tell, after he signed that contract, couple down years. There's still a lot left on this contract right now, and I just don't see it playing out. He's going to have to become a point-per-game player again, and he hasn't proved that since he was in Florida. On now to the Chicago Blackhawks, and we're going to be talking about their captain, Nick Foligno, who's in the last year of a contract, paying him $4.5. When looking at the Hawks, I know this guy's in the last year of his deal, and you can just say, well, it's expiring at the end of this year, but I don't really think the Hawks have many other bad contracts. I think they've gotten rid of all their other long-term contracts that were a problem, and they don't really have any right now. Nick Foligno is having a bit of a down year. I know he took a step away from the team for a little bit. He's only got 6 assists in 15 games coming off a 35-point season last year. His overall impact is just not really the same, kind of below average defensively, and he's been above average defensively for most of his career, and he's playing fourth-line minutes and not really contributing in. So Nick Foligno's last year of his deal could be the worst one for Chicago. Colorado. On now to the Colorado Avalanche, and we're going to be talking about center Brock Nelson, who has 3 more years left on his contract at $7.75. Colorado and Nelson agreed on a contract extension this summer after he came over from the New York Islanders in the trade at the deadline last year. $7.5 million for the next couple years doesn't seem like a whole lot, but he's just not really producing at a level that they hope that he could be at, with 6 goals and 6 assists for 12 points in 22 games. He had 13 points in 19 games last year when he came over. He has a proven 30-plus goal scorer who can consistently put up 20-plus goals per season, but I just don't think he's really impacting the game the same that he was in the Island, not really helping their power play out very much, but he is a reliable two-way forward. I don't think Colorado has many bad deals, but I think this one might be their worst. On now to the Dallas Stars, and we're going to be talking about defenseman Ilya Lyubushkin, who's got 2 more years left on his deal at $3.25. Now, this contract, the second it was signed, was not a good deal. Stars brought him and Matt Dumba in the same offseason to try and resolve their right side of their defense problem, but it was never going to work out, bringing in 2 right-handed shooting defensemen who are both making over $3 million. I think Dallas should try to offload this contract if they can. He just does not provide any offense whatsoever. He's actually pretty limited defensively for the most part, too. Mostly just a physical guy. His defense was a lot better in his Arizona days, and since he went to Toronto, Anaheim, he's been in Buffalo, too. Now he's in Dallas. His defense has been like league average at best. I feel like Ilya Lyubushkin's probably worth about half the money he makes right now, and Dallas has got him on the books for 2 more years. On now to the Detroit Red Wings, and we're going to be talking about forward Andrew Copp, who's got 2 more years left on his deal at $5.625. Andrew Copp, this signing just really wasn't good the second it went down. Detroit was trying to plug some holes with some veterans, but they gave a guy like Andrew Copp, who's really never been the greatest point producer, a long-term contract with a modified no-trade clause as well. His career high in points was 42 with the Detroit Red Wings his first year here. There was optimism, but he only had 9 goals, and he really just hasn't done much since then. 13 goals been his highest season in Detroit. He's only got 1 in 22 games so far this season. Overall, I just don't think he's the greatest player. He's been more of a depth guy who's been making way too much money throughout this deal, and they still got to deal with it for 2 more years. On now to the Edmonton Oilers, and we're going to be talking about defenseman Darnell Nurse, who's got 5 more years left on his contract at $9.25. Another contract that was not good the second it was signed. Darnell Nurse signed an extension with the Oilers coming off that really good shortened season. I believe it was either the COVID season or the season after, where he did have 16 goals in 56 games, 36 points overall. He has had some seasons where he has put up some offense, but I think the problem with Darnell Nurse is he's being paid to do everything, not just like play defense or play offense or be physical, and he's just not able to do that. And the funniest thing is this might be the worst year that he's had in 5 years, and every other year is talked about how bad he is, and it's not really being talked about as much this year, and he's really contributing to the Oilers' struggles. This contract is going to be a burden on the Oilers growing a team around McDavid and Draisaitl, and I wonder if they can get out of it before the end of it. On now to the Florida Panthers, and we're going to be talking about Sam Bennett, who's in the first year of an 8-year deal, paying him $8 million. Now, Sam Bennett, well-deserved payday after getting the Conn Smythe Trophy for the best player in the playoffs last year. I always felt like this contract was a little bit much, though, even with the cap going up, considering he has had a limit of how many points he can score in his career. 51 in 76 games last year being the most. Been a consistent 40-point scorer over the last couple seasons before this. He's only got 8 points in 21 games this year. He has not been the first-line center so far this year. It has been Anton Lundell. His overall impact to the game just has not been too great, if you ask me. He has been kind of better defensively this year than last, but the offense just isn't there whatsoever. I'm really curious to see this contract moving forward, considering Anton Lundell seems like a staple of their team in the future, and I wonder if they're going to be paying Bennett $8 million to be a future third-line center. On now to the LA Kings, and we're going to be talking about defenseman Cody Ceci, who has 4 more years left on his deal at $4.5 million. This signing in the offseason was just straight up confusing. A player like Jordan Spence already in the system, you dish him out for a third-round pick. I understand they have different styles of play, and Jordan Spence can be reliable defensively and also provide offense, but they wanted a different type of player who can penalty kill and think they can play defense, but he just cannot play defense to the capabilities that I think Ken Holland expects him to. $4.5 million for the next 4 years. He's got a modified no-trade clause in this contract as well. Not the flashiest point producer. He's obviously more used in a penalty-killing role and defensive role, but he hasn't been good defensively for a couple seasons now. He did have a couple better defensive seasons from 2021 to 2023 has never been able to really put up offense except for game sevens, which is kind of weird. I think the LA Kings made a mistake this summer signing Cody Ceci so they can play him more than Brant Clark, and I definitely think this contract's going to be a hindrance to them in the future. On now to the Minnesota Wild, and we're going to be talking about Marcus Foligno, who has 3 more years left on his contract at $4 million. Now, Marcus Foligno has been more of like a depth role player throughout his career, providing extremely good defense, also physicality as well. $4 million for him on this recent contract just seemed like a little bit much to me, considering he basically has been a 20-ish point producer for most of his career, with his career high being in 21-22, where he had 42 points in 23 goals. He has 2 assists in 22 games so far this season, just has not contributed in a positive way offensively at all this season. Definitely been a negative asset so far this season, and if he doesn't pick it up, Minnesota's really going to regret this contract. On now to the Montreal Canadiens, and we're going to be talking about winger Josh Anderson, who has 2 more years left on his deal at $5 million. Now, Josh Anderson was brought over about 5 years ago now in the trade with the Columbus Blue Jackets that sent Max Domi the other way. Anderson was immediately signed to this contract. It was 7 years at $5.5 million. I felt like the day this was signed, it was definitely going to be an overpay, considering he really didn't have that many points in Columbus and didn't really seem like he had the upside of scoring points. He had 47 in 2018-19 with 27 goals. That has been his career year ever since. He's just been struggling to get back to that point. He did have 21 goals a couple years ago with the Habs. He has had trouble staying healthy and really just producing, has become more of a role player, and he is playing that role quite well, but definitely just not worth the $5.5 million price tag. Playing on the 3rd and 4th line, has just been awful defensively for the past 5 seasons, and his offense has just been up and down. So $5.5 million for Josh Anderson is too much for me. On now to the New Jersey Devils, and we're going to be talking about winger Andre Palat, who's got 2 more years left on his deal at $6 million. Now, Andre Palat was a very solid player in Tampa Bay, and I would say the first couple years in New Jersey as well, but the last year and a bit just have not worked out well for Andre Palat. He is getting up there in age, and he's just not chipping in offensively, I think, as much as the Devils would like him to. Goal and an assist in 21 games for Palat so far this year. He only had 28 points in 77 games last year, 31 the year before. He just hasn't produced like he did in Tampa Bay at all, and he's just not impacting the offensive zone at the same level as he used to. His defensive game has picked up. He was a solid 2-way winger in Tampa with a down year defensively last year. On now to the Nashville Predators, and we're going to be talking about defenseman Brady Shea, who's got 6 more years left on his contract at $7 million. I feel like the second that this contract was signed, it was not a good one. Even though there was hype about Marchessault, Stamkos, and him coming into the team, I felt like everyone felt like instantly this was the worst contract. He will be a UFA at age 37 this year, really just not performing up to expectation. His best hockey of his career, in my opinion, was played in Carolina. He did dip in points, only a little bit, still had 10 goals last year, but is not impacting the game well whatsoever in the offensive or defensive zone. He improved a lot defensively in Carolina, even from New York, but that's just gone really downhill the last 2 years in Carolina, and they still got to deal with this contract for 6 more years. On now to the New York Islanders, and we're going to be talking about winger Pierre Engvall, who's got 5 more years left on his contract at $3 million. Now, Pierre Engvall is hurt now, I believe, for the rest of the season. Regardless, when he comes back from this contract, even before he was hurt, this deal was not good whatsoever. He was up and down from the AHL to the NHL. Did spend most of last year in the NHL, though, 62 games played, only had 8 goals and 7 assists for 15 points. Was a pretty strong defensive player in his time in Toronto, but hasn't really been good since he came over to the Islanders whatsoever. Just not producing like anything more than a 4th liner, and he's getting paid $3 million for a long time. On now to the New York Rangers, and we're going to be talking about Mika Zibanejad, who's got 5 more years left on his contract at $8.5 million. Now, Zibanejad is currently on year 4 of 8 of this deal. He's set to become a UFA in 2030. He'll be 37 years old. Was a good player a couple years ago, but I feel like has drastically gone downhill over the last couple seasons. He has like picked up points in these seasons, but I just don't think he's really impacting the game as well as he was in the past. He's got 16 points so far in 25 games this year, and I feel like he's just carrying a really hefty cap hit for what he can produce at this time. This is one of his better defensive seasons this year, but the offense just isn't there whatsoever, and he's been obviously shuffled around from center to the wing. You don't really know exactly what he is, and you're still paying a lot of money to him. So not really liking this contract for the Rangers. On now to the Ottawa Senators, and we're going to be talking about winger Fabian Zetterlund, who's got 3 more years left on his deal at $4.275. Now, this deal was signed this past offseason after they traded for him last year. He was an RFA this past summer. He will be a UFA at age 28 in 3 years from now. Now, I was willing to give him the pass after a pretty slow start with the Sens last year, coming over with 2 goals in 20 games and then not performing in the playoffs, but he just has not found his way offensively with the Sens at all this season. 3 goals and 3 assists for 6 points in 23 games. Gave up a second-round pick to get him. I think they were hoping he could provide some secondary scoring and some physicality as well, as he's a pretty solid player. He is pretty solid defensively, though. Like, I don't think this is a terrible contract. I just don't think the Sens really have many other bad contracts. But Fabian Zetterlund isn't looking good so far. On now to the Philadelphia Flyers, and we're going to be talking about defenseman Rasmus Andersson, who's got 2 more years left on his contract at $5.1 million. And came over from Buffalo a couple seasons ago, re-signed with Philadelphia on this long-term deal. Never thought it was a good deal to begin with. I still don't think it's a good deal as the cap is going up. And even though he has gotten much better defensively, I feel like over the last couple seasons with the Flyers, he's really sacrificed his offensive game, and I just don't think he really impacts the game in a positive way much anymore. The Flyers also don't really have many bad long-term contracts overall. He has not played a game yet this year due to injury. And I just think that if the Flyers are going to end up trading him and trying to get some assets for him, they'll probably have to retain. On now to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we're going to be talking about goalie Tristan Jarry, who's got 3 more years left on his contract at $5.375. Now, Tristan Jarry's performance as of late has actually been half decent, but I think over the past year and a half to 2 years collectively, it has not been good at all. He did have a couple solid seasons, I feel like, kind of earlier when he was with Matt Murray and more in a tandem role with a better goalie, but since he's kind of been the guy, I feel like his game has drastically gone downhill. Obviously sent down to the AHL last year, getting Alex Nedeljkovic and Joel Blomqvist to play games. He has been pretty good this year, though. He has been injured as well. I just don't think this contract is good overall, and there's rumors about him potentially going to the Oilers, and I think they definitely have to retain money to make that happen. On now to the Seattle Kraken, and we're going to be talking about goalie Philip Grubauer, who's got 2 more years left on his contract at $5.9. Now, this is another contract I felt like was pretty steep when it was signed. He obviously had some pretty good seasons with the Avalanche, but was also playing behind some pretty good defense. He will be a UFA in 2 years at 35 years old, and I feel like his performances have been absolutely brutal over the last couple seasons. Basically, since he's came over to the Kraken in general, he's played pretty well in 6 games so far this season, but overall, as you can tell, the performance has been consistently poor over the last couple years, and I was wondering why they didn't buy him out this summer. On now to the San Jose Sharks, and we're going to be talking about Barclay Goodrow, who's got 2 more years left on his contract at $3.64. Now, he'll be a UFA at age 34, but this contract was signed by Chris Drury and the New York Rangers. He was acquired on waivers by the Sharks, I believe, 2 years ago. But, I mean, his play has been consistently pretty bad after his stint in Tampa Bay. I feel like he was kind of like a really solid 4th-line player that fit into like a 3rd-line role and ended up getting a pretty long and nice payday from it. Just not really impacting the ice in a positive way offensively or defensively with 1 goal in 24 games overall. And I feel like this is definitely the Sharks' worst contract. On now to the St. Louis Blues, and we're going to be talking about forward Pavel Buchnevich, who's in the first year of a 6-year contract, paying him $8 million per season. He will be a UFA at age 36. When this was signed, I felt like I wasn't that optimistic about it, but I also wasn't that down on it because I felt like he has been a solid player overall throughout his career and has been underappreciated at times, but I feel like his play over the past 7 or 8 months has really just gone downhill overall, just not being good offensively or defensively whatsoever, not getting any points either, and I feel like he is definitely contributing to St. Louis's slow start this year. The Blues had the opportunity to get rid of him, probably even get a 1st-round pick for him before he signed this extension, and I wonder if they regret that decision. On now to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we're going to be talking about defenseman Erik Cernak, who's got 6 more years left on his contract at $5.2. Now, Erik Cernak is a solid defenseman. I'd say he's more of like a number 4 defenseman in my books. I feel like his availability at times makes me a little bit down on this contract overall, and the fact that he just doesn't produce offensively whatsoever. He is a big guy that can skate and play defense for the most part, but I don't love this contract overall. I feel like he's not too far off of being worth it. I also just feel like Tampa doesn't really have any bad contracts overall, and this one overall just might be the worst one. On now to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we're going to be talking about defenseman Morgan Rielly, who's got 5 years left on his contract at 7.5. Now, Morgan Rielly, I feel like, has just never overall been a good defensive player. His offensive game has gone a little bit better so far this season. He's contributing offensively, but he's just not able to still quarterback that power play like he used to. 41 points last season. He's got 17 in 22 games so far this season. But that defensive play overall, as you can tell, has just been consistently way below average. They need more from him. They don't have a number one defenseman. They're paying Morgan Rielly too much money, and I think that they're trying to get out of this contract. On now to the Utah Mammoth, and we're going to be talking about defenseman Sean Durzi, who's got 3 more years left on his deal at $6 million. Now, this is another team where I feel like they just don't have many bad contracts. I don't even know if this is a bad contract. I would just say it's probably the worst value one they're getting because he has been hurt a lot recently. Right-handed shooting defenseman who can put up points, play in the top 4. Defensive game has never really been the strongest in my opinion, but he's still a solid player overall. 11 points in 30 games last year. His career high was 41. Like, if he can get back to that, it wouldn't be a bad contract at all. I just feel like his availability and his lack of defensive times might make this contract questionable. You hope that he can get back to full health. You hope that he can prove me wrong. I'm just not convinced that there's a contract worse than this on the Mammoth. On now to the Vancouver Canucks, and we're going to be talking about goalie Thatcher Demko, who signed in the summer for a 3-year contract paying him $8.5 million. Now, this contract doesn't kick in until the 26-27 season. He's in the last year of a 5-year deal paying him $5 million currently. Now, this deal has a full no-move clause as well, so there's really no way to get out of this contract. I don't love it overall considering his availability. He's just been really hurt over the last couple seasons and basically been relied upon to play like backup minutes, even though he's a way better goalie than that. He has played good this year until he did get hurt, but overall, it's just the availability. He can only play so well for a backup goalie, and you can't tell me, even if he's playing great, if he's playing 30, that it's worth $8.5 million. So I don't love the timing of this contract, and I don't like that they signed it in general. On now to the Vegas Golden Knights, and we're going to be talking about goalie Adin Hill, who's in the first year of a 6-year contract paying him $6.25 million. Now, this is another contract. Didn't love it when it was signed. I am not the biggest Adin Hill fan, to be quite honest with you. Thought he was really good on that cup run, but he also was playing behind a great defensive system. I think he's probably like a below average starting goalie. Probably be a better 1B goalie if you ask me. Hadn't really had a good start this year before he got hurt. Vegas is also another team that doesn't really have a lot of bad contracts overall. I don't think that this is a terrible contract, but I don't think Vegas has one that's worse. On now to the Washington Capitals, and we're going to be talking about center Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's got 6 more years on his contract at $8.5. Now, Pierre-Luc Dubois definitely had a bit of a resurgence season last year when he came over to the Winnipeg Jets, but overall, I just don't love this contract considering you're getting a lot of inconsistencies with Dubois' game. He can be really, really good, or he's pretty invisible at times as well. He didn't have a point in 6 games this year before he got hurt. He had 66 last year in 82 games, which was a career high for him. If he can get back to that level, I don't think this is going to be a bad contract, but I'm just not really convinced he can sustain this consistency throughout the duration of this contract, and I don't think Washington's going to love it by the end of it. Our last team, the Winnipeg Jets, we're going to be talking about winger Alex Iafallo, who just re-signed for a 3-year contract, paying him $3.66. Another team in the Winnipeg Jets who I feel like doesn't really have many bad contracts. I feel like they have a lot of good contracts. Iafallo is just a guy, when he re-signed, I thought it was kind of decent, but I feel like his play has just really gone downhill, not producing much offensively anymore. He did have some pretty decent seasons with the LA Kings where I felt like he was one of the better defensive wingers in the game, but I feel like that has gone downhill over the last couple seasons, and he just really hasn't been impacting the game in accordance to, he's not playing as many minutes anymore. He was playing like second to third minutes in LA. He's dropped to basically being a 4th liner on the Jets, so he's not having a good season so far, and I don't like this contract for Iafallo. That's going to do it for the worst contract on every single team. Do you guys agree with me, or am I way off on this? Curious to see in your comments below. Please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for future content.